welcome to the final video on how to adjust a skirt pattern. This is the last adjustment you would need to make. It is the length adjustment. The only two measurements you're going to need is your waist to hip and your waist to desired length. Now today we're going to work in an A-line skirt for example purposes. Okay, so what you've done is you've taken your pattern, you've chosen your size, and you've cut it out, and like always we're going to measure in the seam allowance, using first whatever the pattern says, 1 inch, 1/4 inch, or no seam allowances, for example. Or if it says nothing, 5/8 of an inch is standard, as you know. So then you'll just measure in and mark that. Now what you're going to do is, working from the center front, you'll just measure down your waist to hip, and then at a perpendicular line you'll just measure across. That's your hip line. Alright? Yeah, and just perpendicular to the center front. And of course you'll do the same thing on the back, working from the center back. Now, to adjust the length, it's really tempting to just add on to the bottom, but as I'll show you up here, if you do that, you also widen the circumference of your skirt, which may or may not be a problem for you. So to just avoid that problem, we are actually going to make the adjustment between the hip line and the hem line. So you just choose, approximately halfway. Doesn't really matter too much, just between the hip and the hem. And you would just make a line. And if you needed to make it longer, you would cut it. And you would just spread it down your desired amount so that this line over here becomes your center front to desired length line at the hem. And then after that, you would just correct the hemline, measuring from the hip to the hem, staying within the seam allowance line. You would just draw a straight line with a ruler. And you would do that on both sides, and then you would measure out your 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, following that line. And that allows you to correct it the right amount. Okay? Or, if you need to make it shorter, what you would do is you would just draw that line, and then instead of cutting, you can of course cut and then overlay and tape, but it's easier just to cut it and then, I'm sorry, not to cut it. It's easier not to cut it, but just draw the line, and if you're making it shorter, just fold it up. And then of course you will need to make sure that this is indeed your center front to desired length measurement. And then you would again correct from the hip line to the seam line, staying along your seam allowance. Just draw straight down. And then you would measure out the 5/8 of an inch you need and just draw straight down. And just correct that line. And that is all you need to do to make a length adjustment to your skirt. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave comments below so I can improve my videos for you. Any requests, let me know. Thank you. Goodbye.